The morning sun had barely crept over the meticulously manicured houses of Maple Grove when Karen Roberts stepped onto her front porch, a mischievous glint dancing in her eyes. Her neighbor, Frank Thompson, had been waging a passive-aggressive war over their shared fence line for months, and today was going to be her moment of triumph. Frank's obsession with the perfect lawn was legendary in the neighborhood. Every weekend, he would spend hours meticulously trimming, watering, and preening his grass, treating each blade like a precious child. His lawn was his pride and joy. The emerald green carpet so pristine that it looked more like a golf course than a residential front yard. In contrast, Karen's lawn was respectable, but decidedly less immaculate, which seemed to drive Frank absolutely crazy. The latest battle had begun 3 weeks ago when Frank had the audacity to leave an anonymous note in her mailbox suggesting she might want to consider a more professional lawn maintenance approach. The nerve of the man. Karen had fumed for days, plotting her revenge with the dedication of a military strategist planning a covert operation. Her plan was simple yet brilliant, or so she thought. She had spent weeks researching and gathering supplies, consulting online forums, and watching countless prank videos. The key ingredient sat beside her, a massive container of industrial-strength bubble solution she had special ordered from a theatrical supply company. This wasn't your typical children's bubble mix. This was a professional-grade foam generator capable of creating volumes of suds that would make a car wash look modest. Frank was predictable, and Karen knew this Saturday morning routine better than her own. He would be out by 6:30 a.m., dressed in his ridiculous khaki gardening outfit, armed with his premium pruning shears and a thermos of black coffee. Today would be different. Today he would get a surprise he would never forget. As the first rays of sunlight illuminated the dew-covered grass, Karen could hear Frank's back door opening. Her heart raced with anticipation. She had positioned her foam cannon, disguised as an innocent lawn sprinkler, strategically near the fence line. One push of a button, and Frank's pristine lawn would be transformed into a soap-filled wonderland. What Karen didn't realize was that her carefully constructed plan was about to spiral into something far more complicated than a simple neighborly prank. The bubble solution was more powerful than she had anticipated, the foam more expansive, the potential consequences more significant than her wildest imagination could predict. As Frank's footsteps approached, Karen's finger hovered over the remote control. A mixture of excitement and nervous energy coursed through her veins. This was it, the moment of reckoning. Little did she know that the next few moments would change everything, not just for her and Frank, but for the entire neighborhood of Maple Grove. The first bubble emerged, glistening in the morning light, a harbinger of the chaos that was about to unfold. The moment Frank stepped onto his lawn, the world around him transformed into a surreal, sudsy nightmare. What began as a targeted prank quickly became an uncontrollable foam explosion that defied Karen's wildest expectations. The industrial-strength bubble solution erupted with such force that within seconds, Frank disappeared entirely behind a massive wall of white, billowing foam. Neighbors began to emerge from their houses, drawn by the strange spectacle. Mrs. Henderson from 2 doors down dropped her morning newspaper. The Johnson twins stopped their bicycle ride, mouths agape. Even the neighborhood's stray cat seemed frozen in bewilderment, his fur collecting soap bubbles like some bizarre, foamy coat. Frank's initial reaction was not what Karen had anticipated. Instead of anger, there was a moment of absolute stunned silence. Then, unexpectedly, a sound emerged from the phone. Was that laughter? The bubbles began to shift, and Frank's head poked through the sudsy landscape, his perfectly trimmed mustache now covered in white foam, his khaki gardening outfit completely saturated. Karen Roberts. His voice boomed across the street, a mix of shock and something else. Was it amusement? The foam continued to spread, now creeping beyond Frank's perfectly manicured lawn. It began to overflow onto the sidewalk, covering Karen's own front yard, creating a massive, soap-filled landscape that looked like something between a car wash gone wrong and a bizarre art installation. What Karen hadn't calculated was the sheer volume of foam her carefully purchased solution would generate. The industrial-strength mixture was designed for large-scale theatrical productions, not residential pranks. Each bubble seemed to multiply exponentially, growing and spreading with a mind of its own. Emergency services were the next to arrive. The fire department responded to multiple calls about a foam emergency on Maple Grove. 2 fire trucks pulled up, their lights spinning, firefighters jumping out with looks of complete confusion. Captain Mike Rodriguez, a 25-year veteran, had never seen anything quite like this in all of his years of service. "Is this some kind of bizarre soap experiment?" he muttered, watching as the foam continued to expand. Karen stood frozen on her front porch, her moment of triumph quickly dissolving into a mixture of horror and fascination. The remote control for the bubble cannon still clutched in her hand, she watched as her perfectly planned prank spiraled completely out of control. The neighborhood would later describe it as the Great Foam Incident of Maple Grove. A day when the laws of physics seemed to bend and suburban normalcy was washed away in a tsunami of soap suds. Frank, surprisingly, was the first to start laughing. A deep, genuine laugh that cut through the phone, catching Karen completely off guard. This was not the reaction of a man whose pristine lawn had just been destroyed. This was something else entirely. As the foam continued to spread, covering cars, mailboxes, and creeping towards other lawns, Karen realized that her simple prank had become something far more significant. This was no longer just about getting back at her nitpicky neighbor. This was becoming a neighborhood legend. The next morning brought a surreal scene to Maple Grove. What had once been a pristine suburban neighborhood now looked like a war zone. A war fought entirely with soap and bubbles. Professional cleanup crews arrived with industrial-grade equipment, looking more like hazmat teams than landscapers. Frank Thompson, surprisingly, had become the unofficial coordinator of the cleanup efforts. He moved between crews with a clipboard, offering technical advice and seemingly enjoying every moment of the chaos he helped transform from a simple prank into a neighborhood spectacle. Karen's legal troubles were mounting. The Environmental Protection Agency had begun a full investigation. The local water management department was particularly concerned about the chemical composition of the foam and its potential impact on the drainage system. Her lawyer, Rebecca Chen, was working overtime to mitigate the potential fallout. But the most surprising development came from an unexpected source. As the foam slowly receded, revealing the war-torn landscape of Maple Grove, a local documentary filmmaker named Jake Martinez saw an opportunity. He had been capturing footage since the initial foam explosion, sensing something bigger was unfolding. "This isn't just a prank," Jake told Karen during an impromptu interview. "This is a social experiment. A moment of suburban rebellion that speaks volumes about community, expectations, and the pressure of perfection." His words rang true. The neighborhood had been transformed. What was once a place of rigid conformity and unspoken rules had become something else entirely. Neighbors who had barely spoken to each other were now sharing stories, laughing about the foam incident, taking selfies with the receding soap mountains. Frank revealed more of his past. He had worked on some of Hollywood's most elaborate special effects sequences, creating massive foam setups for action movies and sci-fi epics. The very thing that had driven him to be so particular about his lawn, a need for absolute control, had paradoxically made him appreciate the beautiful chaos of Karen's prank. "Do you know how many perfectly planned movie scenes I've seen fall apart?" Frank told Karen during a surprisingly friendly conversation. "Sometimes the most beautiful moments are the ones you never see coming." The cleanup continued, but the neighborhood had changed. Mrs. Henderson's commemorative T-shirts were selling out. The local coffee shop created a foam incident special drink. Social media was ablaze with memes and videos of the soap-covered street. Karen found herself at the center of something much larger than her original prank. What had begun as an act of revenge had become a bizarre community-building event. Her lawyer warned her about potential fines and legal repercussions, but there was an undeniable electricity in the air. As the last of the foam was cleared away, revealing patches of soap-damaged grass and temporarily stained driveways, something fundamental had shifted. Maple Grove would never be the same again. The documentary filmmaker continued to shoot, capturing the aftermath, the conversations, the unexpected connections. He knew he was documenting something special, a moment when suburban perfection had been washed away by something as simple and unexpected as soap suds. Karen looked out over her now decimated lawn, a mixture of anxiety and unexpected excitement building inside her. This was far from over. 3 months after the Great Foam incident, Maple Grove had become something of a local legend. Jake Martinez's documentary, Suds of Suburbia, was gaining traction in film festivals, capturing the unexpected community transformation that had begun with Karen's ill-conceived prank. The legal proceedings had been surprisingly anticlimactic. Instead of massive fines, Karen was sentenced to community service, which, ironically, involved working with the local environmental management team to develop safer disposal methods for industrial cleaning solutions. Her lawyer, Rebecca Chen, had negotiated a settlement that was more about education than punishment. Frank Thompson had become an unlikely ally. What started as a neighborly rivalry had transformed into a genuine friendship. He had even helped Karen redesign her lawn, bringing his professional landscaping expertise to bear. The new design was a perfect blend of her more relaxed approach and his meticulous attention to detail. A metaphorical truce made tangible in grass and carefully placed shrubs. The neighborhood had changed. Monthly block parties became a new tradition, with the foam incident serving as a perpetual inside joke. Mrs. Henderson's T-shirts had become collector's items, with some selling for surprising amounts online. The local coffee shop still served the foam incident special, though the recipe had been modified several times. During one of their now regular coffee meetings, Frank revealed the full story of why he had been so particular about his lawn. It was a deeply personal tale of loss and control, His late wife had been an avid gardener, and maintaining the perfect lawn was his way of keeping her memory alive. Karen's prank had, in some strange way, helped him let go of that rigid perfectionism. Sometimes, Frank told her, his eyes twinkling, you need a massive soap explosion to wash away the things holding you back. The documentary had brought unexpected opportunities. Jake Martinez was in talks with several streaming platforms, and both Karen and Frank had been approached for speaking engagements about community, spontaneity, and the beauty of unexpected moments. Karen's workplace had been surprisingly supportive. Her boss found the entire saga hilarious, and she had become something of an office legend, the woman who had turned a neighborhood prank into a community-building event. She was even asked to give a presentation about thinking outside the box, though she was careful to avoid any soap-related metaphors. As winter approached, the lawn had mostly recovered. The patches of damaged grass had been replaced, and a new landscape had emerged, one that looked both meticulously maintained and charmingly imperfect. It was a physical representation of the changes that had swept through Maple Grove. The last scene of Jake's documentary captured a moment that seemed to epitomize everything that had happened. Karen and Frank standing together on the lawn, laughing with just a hint of soap suds floating in the background, a reminder of the day everything changed. Who would have thought, Karen said to Frank during the final interview, that a stupid prank could change everything? Frank's mustache twitched with his characteristic mix of humor and wisdom. The best moments in life are the ones you never see coming. As the credits rolled on the documentary, Maple Grove stood as a testament to the unexpected, a neighborhood transformed by one moment of suburban rebellion, one massive soap explosion, and the beautiful chaos that can emerge when people let go of their carefully constructed facades. The lawn was no longer just a lawn. It was a story, a memory, a symbol of something much larger than perfectly trimmed grass and neighborhood expectations.